Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the vertebral column and the bones that make up the vertebral column. So divide the vertebral column into several areas. The cervical vertebrae uh, make up are found in the cervical or neck region, and they form the cervical curvature, which is a curvature, towards the back side, or a posterior curvature. And there are 7 cervical vertebrae. The thoracic vertebrae are in the thoracic region, and they are the ones that have rib facets and connect to the ribs and help form part of the thoracic cage. And there are 12 of those. The lumbar vertebrae are in the lower back, or the lumbar region. They're the largest vertebrae, and there's 5 of those, and they have another posterior curvature. And then in the pelvic region, where the pelvic curvature, there's 2 bones in the adult, which are actually several bones that have fused together, the sacrum and the coccyx, or the tailbone. So let's talk about the curvatures again. Cervical curvature in the neck is a posterior curvature. Thoracic curvature is an anterior curvature. Lumbar, the lower back, is a posterior, and the pelvic or sacral curvature is an anterior curvature in the pelvic region. Some other important structures we want to make note of: the rib facets are only found in the thoracic vertebrae, and they help form the joints between the thoracic vertebrae and the ribs. The intervertebral discs are little shock absorbers that are located between most of the vertebrae. They're made up of the denser fibrous cartilage, and they're really good at absorbing shock. They have a membrane that surrounds them that can be damaged and results in a ruptured disc, or sometimes the disc can slide forward and you can get what we call a slip disc, and it can put pressure on the spinal cord and cause pain or numbness. Other problems with the vertebrae: kyphosis or humpback is an exaggerated posterior curvature. Lordosis or swayback anterior curvature of the lumbar region is exaggerated. Scoliosis is a lateral curvature or side-to-side curvature. So let's talk about the parts of a vertebrae. The body, which you can see here in the diagram, is the thick anterior portion that supports the weight and transmits the weight down to the pelvic region and then to the legs. The 2 short stalks that connect one vertebrae to the next are called pedicles. The lamina are plates that project from the pedicles, and together the pedicles and the lamellae, they form the vertebral arch, which encloses the vertebral foramen, which is the pathway that the spinal cord travels through. The articulating processes form the joints between the vertebrae. The intervertebral foramina are openings where the spinal nerves connect with the spinal cord and project out from the spinal cord and out from the vertebral column. So the cervical vertebrae, like we said, are in the neck. There's 7 of them. The first 2 are unique in that they form a unique joint. They have a unique structure that's different from the other cervical vertebrae. The first one, the atlas, supports the head. It's going to directly articulate with the occipital condyles on the occipital bone and forms a fixed joint with the base of the skull. The axis, the second one, forms the pivot joint that allows us to turn their heads side to side so the atlas and axis together form that pivot joint. There's another structure that forms that joint called the dens process, or the otodoid process, that's different from other vertebrae. The axis and the other cervical vertebrae other than the atlas have a bifid spinous process, where the spinous process is split, kind of like it's been cut at the tip. Thoracic vertebrae are described as looking like a giraffe's head sometimes. They have the longest spinous processes and the rib facets. The lumbar vertebrae are characterized by having large body's thick, short spinous processes, and they carry a lot of the weight there. The sacrum is 5 fused vertebrae, and it kind of encloses or connects the pelvis at the posterior or the backside. The coccyx or tailbone is 3 to 5 very small vertebrae that fused to form the tailbone.